where you have not been granted bail, so you are on remand. If you're granted bail, you get to live your life as normal, albeit with some conditions, whilst you attend to your case for the trial to start and until it ends. So those who are on remand, it was found that the prisons were getting unnecessarily congested because people were arraigned, or people are arraigned, suspects are arraigned, they are taken to court, they are not granted bail because maybe in a deserving situation, they don't deserve bail, so they are not granted bail. And then they are sent on remand. They are in the custody of the prison service, and sometimes they appear to be forgotten, quote unquote. They are forgotten. So the Justice for All program goes to their aid. It goes to the prisons, and it is actively pursued by the Office of the Chief Justice and the Attorney General's Department. So they are lawyers who volunteer to join. They go to the prison service with the facilitators, the Pulse Foundation. We are going to be speaking to their founder and chief executive shortly. They go to the prisons. The prisoners are screened, and it is found out, as the president said in his speech at the 10th anniversary, there was someone who had been on remand for over a decade. Is it 2 decades? Yes, on remand. Meaning he has not been tried, his case has not been heard, it has not been determined that he is guilty. Remember, by our laws, by our constitution, all persons accused of a crime are innocent. That's the presumption. They are presumed innocent until and unless a court of law has found them guilty, or they themselves have admitted their guilt before a court of law. So it is unjust, grave injustice, in fact, for an accused person who has not been tried, who has not been heard at all, to be on remand for years, for weeks, for months, and no one is attending to them. So that is what the Justice for All program has been doing. They go there, they find out that people are there and they shouldn't be there. So they organize a court session. And thankfully, Justice Georgina Wood, on the back of Seth Kwame Boateng's documentary, Locked and Forgotten, ensured that a court was set up in the Nsawam prisons. So there's a court right there in the prisons. So the judges move, and this time, as you can see, led by Justice Ifia Sewa Sareboche, Justice of the Court of Appeal. They go around, and they are doing that at this moment. They are going to prison after prison. And we'll be telling you some of the stories, how people who are there, who shouldn't be there, are heard, and they are found to be deserving. And so they are either released, discharged, completely to go free, because some of them they find at the time this program gets to them that the offense they committed, supposing it's an offense known as misdemeanor, which means the maximum sentence they would have served if a court found them guilty would be 3 years. But they have been put to remand, and they have done 4 years, 5 years, which means they have already served the sentence, even though they've not been found guilty. So the judges hear these cases, and they just set them free. Go. Of course, go and sin no more, if indeed you committed that offense. Now, in the last week, let's follow some of what has been going on in the Justice for All program. Latif Idris has been reporting.
The Justice for All program, which started in 2007, has so far resulted in a significant reduction in prison overcrowding, from 51% prisoner overcrowded population as at December 2018 to 42.6% in May 2024. Wednesday's hearing at the Nsawam Medium Security Prison was in 2 ad hoc courts presided over by Justice Lydia Osei Marfo and His Lordship Justice Ekufo. Both judges had a total of 24 applications split between them. Court of Appeal Judge Justice Ifia Sewa Asaribotwe was the supervising judge. Ghana's prison population as at the end of May 2024 stood at 14,647 as against the authorized nationwide prison capacity of 10,265. The population is made up of 13,057 convicts with 1,590 pre-trial convicts.
So it's joy and jollity for about 22 inmates here at the Nsawam Medium Security Prison who have been granted bail and some discharged. In all, there were 24 cases and 22 of them have their liberties restored now. 12 of them have been discharged, 10 have been granted bail, 2 of them denied.
We have again today witnessed the impact of the Justice for All program that has brought many vulnerable remand inmates who, as a result of lack of legal representation and other factors, could have spent years in prison without trial. From the court proceedings today, I can only admonish investigators to be diligent and not leave the vulnerable remand inmates to languish in prison for months and in some cases for years. I also wish to emphasize that by law, only judges and magistrates are authorized to renew and sign warrants for inmates.
As part of efforts to decongest the prisons, stakeholders in the justice delivery system are aggressively pushing for the community service bill to be passed into law. Addressing the media at the Nsawam Medium Security Prison, Executive Director of Perfecter of Sentiment, a not-for-profit organization championing improved prison conditions, Jonathan Osei Owusu expressed confidence in the progressive nature of the bill.
We are praying and calling on the minister, it is their baby, that the Minister of Interior and Attorney General should expedite action at cabinet level so that the bill can be put before Parliament. If that is done before October, we are hopeful that at least before Parliament rises or election gets so busy or campaign gets busy, they will be able to push this agenda through so that those who have been arrested for misdemeanors, minor offenses, can be given alternatives to incarceration, do some community service, sweep on the compound and etc., so that it will save government costs and it will bring us some relief.
Some discharged inmates, including a self-confessed Nigerian scammer, narrated the circumstances that landed him in prison to Joy News.
We have an issue fight, and so I took my property, took my laptop, then I left to the hotel where the accident happened.
What was the accident?
At night, around something 12 o'clock midnight, I went to Choice, London bar, to pick a prostitute there. So the next morning, I tried to wake her up. No way, she didn't wake up.
As part of efforts to improve the criminal justice system, the Judiciary Criminal Justice Committee, commissioned by the Chief Justice, has proposed some pragmatic interventions to improve jury trial and criminal trials in general. Latif Idris, Joy News, in Nsawam Medium Security Prison. Christopher Kester is not the only foreign national or Nigerian doing time at the Nsawam Medium Security Prison. There are a number of his compatriots and other foreigners locked up in the penitentiary. However, Kester's motive for relocating to Ghana, which eventually landed him in prison, may differ from the intentions of other inmates. As an online scammer, Kester confessed to the High Court judge in the ad hoc court inside the Nsawam Medium Security Prison Justice Lydia Osei-Mafo that he relocated to Ghana to perpetrate internet scam, which he succeeded at doing. Sharing of the loot was, however, the beginning of his woes.
I have a problem with my share market, which we used to share money 60-40. So I am the one who, the lady who paid the money is my client.
Okay.
So he's supposed to give me 40 and take 60. So he refused. He said he's not going to give me 40, he's going to give me 30. So we have an issue, fight, and so I took my property, took my laptop, then I left to the hotel where the accident happened.
Nonetheless, it was his lucky day, and so he was discharged by the High Court judge. When I caught up with him as he prepared to leave the four walls of the prison for the first time since 2019, he was all remorseful about contracting the services of a sex worker who died deep in the night after satisfying him sexually.
At night, around something 12 o'clock midnight, I went to church, London bar, to pick a prostitute there. So the next morning, I tried to wake her up. No way, she didn't wake up. I discovered that the white foam is coming out on her mouth. So I rushed down to the hotel attendant to talk to the hotel. So the hotel attendant helped me to took the girl to the bedroom to on a shower on her. So from there, the hotel attendant called the madam of the owner of the hotel. So then the owner of the hotel came now, called the police to.
Christopher Kester says the prison experience has been transformational. He tells me he has no plans of returning to his home country, Nigeria, anytime soon, as he intends to stay in Ghana a little longer. Latif Idris, Joy News, Nsawam Medium Security Prison.
What relief these people must be feeling. And what a good thing for a country to do to its people. Fairness and justice. Our Constitution preaches equality before the law. It preaches the presumption of innocence if you're accused of a crime. Thankfully, we're joined in the studio by the facilitators of this project, the Justice for All program. Jonathan, we heard a while ago the President of the Republic, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, praising you and the Pause Foundation for doing a good job in facilitating the Justice for All program. So first of all, give us an idea. Pause Foundation, who are you? You're doing God's work.
I get that a lot, that we are doing God's work. And let me say good afternoon, a very good Sunday afternoon to your viewers. And it's, I'm delighted, first time being hosted by you on your important program. The Pause Foundation, basically, in a sentence, is a human rights organization or one of the leading civil society organizations in Ghana, perhaps in West Africa, because our work goes beyond Ghana.
Right.
We're currently in about 6 West African countries. So we focus on human rights, criminal justice, gender, and then legislative and policy issues. So those are the areas that, if you mention Pause Foundation, our strength or what we do,
right,
easily identify as what.
So you have a special niche. You first are looking at criminal justice. And I think that is where people know you the more. And as Latif was reporting, he told people what PAUSE stands for. What is that?
For the sake of our conversation, we've been facilitating this important Justice for All program.
What does PAUSE mean?
Oh, the POS.
Exactly.
I try to run away from it because it's a whole big one. It's Perfecter of Sentiment Foundation.
Perfecter of Sentiment
Foundation. Bringing some level of perfection. You can't have everything perfect. That's why it's a continual thing. Perfecter of sentiment, your thoughts, your attitude, systems, foundation. So basically, that is what it means.
When the president was appreciating Joe Gate, the Attorney General in 2007, under whose regime this was introduced, and also praising Justice Theodora Georgina Wood, Chief Justice, for giving emphasis to the Justice for All program. And he used the expression that she had created, is it a secretariat within her office, to make sure that it was done and done well. And of course, all the other judges who had assisted, and then Justice Sophia Kufu, also for playing a pivotal role in what you are very much interested in, where you and I share common interests, the community sentencing bill. He took his time to also mention Jonathan Osei Owusu of the Pulse Foundation and thanked you for what you do as facilitators. What exactly do you do in this program?
It is indeed, and it was an honor for the first time to hear the President mention us and the Chief Justice for praise. Because most people, we are behind the scene, the backbenchers. We don't come out to talk about the work we do.
That's right.
But when you look at the Justice for All program and the facilitation role, basically my office as Pulse Foundation serves as the defense team made up of lawyers and paralegals. It gets to a point running the program at some point became a bit difficult. So we had to train paralegals to assist the lawyers to do the conferencing. Basically, when the remand list is generated by the National Steering Committee, previously called the Remand Review Task Force National, it will be handed over to us to go to the prisons, conference with the inmates, interview them, and prepare draft applications where our lawyers will take care of it, and then we go to file all these applications. Previously, we could be having 3 or 4 court sittings simultaneously in a prison, handling over 150 cases in a day. And that was how the program was run. So you can imagine in a day, the stress that you have to go through. When paralegals do the work and you are vetting with lawyers, it's a whole lot, 100 applications within the shortest time. And when the National, led by the Judicial Service, fixed the date, you can't tell me, you can't go back to the judge responsible and say that you couldn't finish the application. So it comes with speed, and you have to be meticulous. Because you saw Justice Efia Sewa speaking nicely. If you mess up in any of this, you are not going to get it likely. She will not consider you are a facilitator and you say
you can't mess up with her.
You should.
She's very meticulous.
Where you are, the system even makes you feel like 1 or 2 needed to be tightened and good. She is not going to. So with all these zeros,
she's meticulous. She's a disciplinarian.
So even time, have gone through a lot with her, and then Justice Mensah Homia, who is now the chair of the Justice for All Steering Committee. So it's been, to me, a happy moment and insightful event every day when the little effort that you and your team and pro bono lawyers put in there gets the release of many. If you look at Nsawam, it's one of the biggest reforms that the current Chief Justice brought that has led to this achievement. If you look at the application we placed before the court, we had about 20. Kumasi, we did Kumasi on Monday. So sometimes it confuses me, but the data, Kumasi was 33 applications, and then Nsawam was 24 applications. Just imagine, 12 were unconditionally discharged. 10 were granted bail. Only 2 of the applications were not granted. And you could see the stories that if somebody has
It speaks to the diligence of the work that you did.
Yes.
To have that success rate, to have 12 discharged and to have 10 also granted bail and only 2 that failed, it tells me that you were diligent in the work you did. Otherwise, many of them would have been thrown out.
As much as we are crediting us for that, I will also credit the two co-chairs, Justice Efia Sewa and Justice Bensa Humia, and the Chief Justice. When they came, when the Chief Justice was sworn in, this was one of the critical areas that she was looking at. So when the reforms were beginning, it was not easy. We were not taking it lightly. But as a result of the reform, now you don't put about 200 cases before the court and have about 50 of the application thrown off. This one, the deserving ones have been meticulously targeted.
Great.
And it is as a result of that where we also embrace the reform that has led to some of these. So for 12 unconditionally discharged, but when you gradually look at the cases, Samson, it's sometimes disheartening for somebody to spend even 1 year. This time we are looking at people who had spent 11 years in custody without trial. Some of the cases, they've been to court 3 times upon their arrest, 7 times upon their arrest. So we are looking at systemic issues and find out how to address them. And that is where I'm sure the conversation will lead to the community service as we're talking about.
That's right.
And don't let people also get us wrong. The problems are there. But let us not also be so hard on ourselves, because our our criminal justice system is envied by many within the sub-region.
Right.
Aside the challenges we have. So if we have challenges, we are putting the challenges there to be resolved, not to make us look bad, because internationally, Justice for All has come out for praise.
That's
by
correct.
The UN Human Rights Council.
That's correct.
That other countries should emulate. I've been to Kenya. I have assisted Kenya to come.
Okay, so I want to do this. Let's hear President Akufo-Addo one more time at the 10th anniversary and what he said. It is significant about the program. Let's hear him again, and then we'll hear Jonathan one more time about the nitty-gritty, the details. How do they determine that this particular prisoner deserves to appear before a judge to be determined whether they should be set free or they should be granted bail? How do they arrive at that kind of selections that they make? Let's listen to President Akufo-Addo again.
We cannot be a nation where some are under the shed of freedom and justice, while others are rid of its protective shade. That is why I commend heartily the initiators and sustainers of the Justice for All program, which has seen a significant number of our citizens held on remand receive the benefit of a hearing and a resolution of their cases. Since its inception in September 2007, the program has steadily seen to the reduction of the remand population from 33% of the prison population to under 13% as of January 2018. Tonight, it is my privilege to join you to celebrate 10 years of the Justice for All program. Dedication to the cause of human rights and the concept of equality before the law have been inspiring themes of my life, and I'm delighted to recognize the success of the program and to acknowledge the contribution of the various stakeholders that have worked towards this. I'd like to extend the appreciation of a grateful nation to the Honorable Joe Gate, Member of Parliament for Sikado, current Minister for Railways Development and former Attorney General, for initiating the program in 2007. Georgina Theodora Wood, the former Chief Justice, the 12th occupant of that office, for sustaining it by placing it directly under the office of the Chief Justice. And the current Chief Justice, Sophia Akufo, for intensifying its operations and guiding the introduction of the first draft of the non-custodial sentencing policy bill. I thank also the chairperson, Justice C.J. Honyenuga, Justice of the Court of Appeal, for his coordination of the program. commend the National Remand Review Task Force, which is made up of the Judicial Service, the Office of the Attorney General, the Ghana Police, the Ghana Prisons, Legal Aid, and the POS Foundation, led by Jonathan Osei-Wusu, for its efforts to resolve the dilemma between crime control and due process, and for the effective collaboration between civil society and government on this thorny issue. It is through their efforts that Zoro Kuta, after spending 20 years on remand in Ankafo prison, Rashida Halidu, a mother who gave birth to a baby boy in Kumasi prison, and Ya Inkum, who spent 6 months in Winneba prison on a charge of threat of death resulting from his failure to pay 1 CD for Akweteshi, were able to rejoin society. Ghana is again by the program showing leadership on the continent. Indeed, some officials of sister African countries have traveled here to understudy the program with a view to its implementation back home. In November 2017, at the United Nations Universal Periodic Review of Ghana in Geneva, our nation was commended for its operation. As one author put it, and I quote, "There is no greater threat to a free and democratic nation than a government that fails to protect its citizens' freedom and liberty as aggressively as it pursues justice," unquote. Government is determined to promote the rights of all Ghanaians in the spirit of the Constitution and to work tirelessly to address the legislative and policy loopholes in the justice delivery system.
So you're still here on The Law. It is your legal light. It is your health law. And in the studio is Jonathan Osei-Wusu, who is the founder and chief executive of the executive director of the POS Foundation, who are facilitators of the Justice for All program. So I deliberately called for this to be played a second time. Somebody spent 20 years. That's travesty. They have not been tried. Their fate has not been determined that they are guilty of the offense. And yes, they have spent 20 years in jail. Somebody for her inability to pay 1 CD, gets into jail for, is it 3 months? First, what have you found leads to these situations where people on remand are left there without the due attention? And then I'll ask you the second question. How do you go about the selection?
Thank you, but as the President spoke, let me just have a little bite on that to say that on that same day, which was the 10th anniversary, the President, I think the Chief Justice pushed at the time, and the President was candid that the funding of this program is it's quite some kind of funding. It's no more going to be solely by donors, because it was donors that we brought in or contacted judicial service that takes care of it. But it is going to be co-funded, and that promise has been fulfilled.
Great.
So it is being funded by the government of Ghana through the judiciary and Open Society Foundation through POS Foundation. So having heard from the President, I must say that we are learning from best practices, and every time we go outside to look for these best practices. In this situation, Ghana's Justice for All has been touted to be one of the best practices within the sub-region that from the UN you heard, and then Kenya, as I was saying, have come to understudy the program. You know how Kenya calls this? All for justice, and Ghana is justice for all. So you can just imagine some of these happiness that comes as a result of the little work that we do.
Great.
Now, when we come to the Zoro Kuta and others,
Yes.
You'll be surprised that almost every single case, because we are facilitating and doing this, we are privy to. That man's case, he had spent more than 20 years in prison. First in Kumasi, transferred to Ankafo, So the fact of the matter is records on him could not be found. So then how do we say that he's been there for 20 years? We needed, as an institution of record too, you can't put anything out there. But we picked when he was transferred from Kumasi prisons to Ankafu, who was the state attorney at that time, who was the last police commander or prison commander. Then we put all the pieces of these facts together, then realized that we can only say on authority that he has been there for over 20 years, that not the number of years he was mentioning. At the end of the day, the pride of some of us is to see this man arraigned before court and the case is dealt with.
Great.
Before I go to the second one, let me emphasize that not all cases that come before Justice for All get the court's approval.
Of course, we have just seen that. And all the time, as the media follow you, they tell us the stories. Now, let's keep focus. How do these cases come about? Justice Sewa Sarbuchi was giving caution and an advice to those in charge of the criminal prosecution process, particularly the police. So let me not, as it were, predict what you have to say. So how does it come about?
So there is a criteria set up by the National Steering Committee of Justice for All.
No, not how to you select the people. How come I am accused of an offense?
But you don't qualify.
Police have arrested me. They take me to court. I don't get bail. I am put on remand in the custody of the state. Perhaps it's a misdemeanor, for which even if I was found guilty and sentenced to the maximum, I would have spent only 3 years. And yet I find myself in prison for 11 years. What happened? Because once you are not granted bail, the court gives another date for you to be brought to court.
So Samson, we are looking at two questions you've asked over here. We are looking at how do they qualify? That was what I began. Then what accounts for their long stay and the lapses that probably have necessitated the Justice for All program.
Right.
So please let me finish with the first one briefly and then come on some of the factors that we've witnessed, because it's like every day you are in the prisons and you are talking to them and you are seeing some of these challenges that happens over there. So for the benefit of viewers, they may think that a lot of people are on remand. For Kumasi, we had over 260 persons on remand, but only 99 qualified. Those who qualified were the people, all list of remandees are sent to the Judicial Service. We all sit as steering committee. Then we vet. If you have not been on remand for 2 years with the charge of murder or robbery, that is a criteria, you can't be there. That is not to say that you may not be innocent. But this is an intervention going back as audit to look at the reasons why you've overstayed. So we need to be meticulous and careful so that we don't also in the process rush to release some unnecessary criminals onto the street. For the charge of murder and robbery, nobody will joke with it. So the criteria is set not by law, but by principle, to be able to give time for the CIDs and the police to investigate further and not to rush them there. That is how come some of these criteria have been given. So looking at the criteria, every single stakeholder is on board,
right,
including the police. When we vet, the list is then handed over to POS to go and do the interview. So people will call me, my brother is in prison, can you put him on? I don't have locus. Nobody, even the judge, cannot ask a person to be put on it.
Okay.
That I will also then have the locus to tell my lady that you cannot. And
so there's no room for arbitrariness and abuse
at all.
Okay.
So when that is set, we go to the prisons, and out of the 99, based on the search, which is a critical reform brought by the current Chief Justice, now we are able to know which cases are part-head so that we take them off. At the end of the day, out of the 99, we realize that the court has been more proactive, cases are being run, and we had only 31 in Kumasi. So that is to give you the criteria, how things are set. And so there cannot be anybody to bribe someone to put your name or take your name out.
All right.
Now let's come to the critical matter, which are the lapses.
You are preempting a lot of my questions. Thank you.
Which
Go
seems
ahead.
to be the challenge. Let me ask you, Kenya took a bold step and scrapped all the police prosecutors. and decided to come in with lawyers. Somebody will ask a bigger question. Can Ghana do that? Do we have the resources? One of the challenges, police does more of the prosecution at the lower court. We are
That's
on the
right.
way. And those are the areas where the lapses sometimes also get there. And when it happens like that, sometimes it's also not the police, not that they don't have, sometimes it's the knowledge. But it's not every time they don't. There are very astute police prosecutors
Yeah.
who have done this for long and they know the nitty-gritties of the matter. But we are talking about some challenges that the system have also created. There are charges that the police cannot prosecute unless they receive advice from the state.
That's correct.
The state, in the last time I checked,
So that they go for an adjournment. They go. The person is remanded.
Good.
And the case is adjourned to 30th of August.
We're supposed to be every fortnight, 14 days, but sometimes it goes beyond.
Right. And then they have sent the docket for advice. By that time, the advice hasn't come. So what do? A problem. Should they take the person to the court or they shouldn't take the person to the court?
But by law,
is that what happens?
they take them to court. And that is where some of them take it so easy that since the advice is not in, they don't take them to court. So now there have been paralegal system in the prisons. You train them, and then they will call you, the CID, that by the warrant that you brought the person, he is due for court. Whether advice is in or not, it is this. But let me give you just a short one. When marijuana, a roll of weed is taken from Pando or Hawaii or Kintampo, the forensic department is in Accra. You seal this. You bring it all the way to Accra. They test it. Look at the number of years that it takes. Somebody is on remand for 3 years over just 3 or 4 rolls of marijuana, and they need to test the exhibit and make sure it is really in line with what they are talking about. And that takes a longer time. What has the police officer done? That is not from him. There are lapses that we can attribute to the police officer, but there are lapses that are as a result of our system that we need to address. In terms of the advice, AG, how many state attorneys do we have in Central Region? The last time I checked, they were no more than 12. So they are serving how many districts in the Central Region? And if an advice from Asan, from Gomwa, from Swedru gets to AG's office, and they are the same people going to advise on all this, the number is not much. Recently that I heard, the AG have gotten funds or clearance to add more lawyers. So when it happens like that, the person will be there for long, and the human right of the person, it's what becomes problematic. There are different factors that allude to it. When you bring it to the court, Article 14.4, upon which the whole program premise, also gives you unconditional release. But now the codification of the term reasonable period of time has also become questionable. To you, Samson, as a judge, 2 years is reasonable period of time. 10 years may be also a reasonable period of time for somebody. That has not been clearly, I know there have been some rulings by the Supreme Court to deal with this, but it's not clearly codified or defined. So you will use your discretion, and that also brings some of the reasons for which some of them stay there for long. Some of them were granted bail or had been granted bail already. Some say, why were they not off? Because we, the public, we go to church, like my church Pentecost, and we will pray. Mempa buy money, mempa buy money, mempa buy money. You don't want conflict with the law, but the law can have you even if you are innocent. President Nkrumah, Mandela, all were in conflict with the law, as in the law gripped them, but they were not guilty. So people don't want to go to the police station or follow up when there are criminal issues, because they prayed against. So when court grants them bail, who goes to grant to stand as surety for them? So they are there. Even though the court have granted them bail, they don't have any surety to stand and sign for them, and they also languish in jail. So it's if we want to pick pieces by law, by practice, by administration, by procedure, we can diagnose this at another time where we will pick segment by segment to know where the institutional lapses could be. But let me end by saying that is the reform you've seen the Chief Justice.
So how often does the Justice for All program go to the prisons?
For that, due to funding, it's once in every prison, and not every prison. I mean, the selected.
Once in every prison in a year.
In a year, let me put that way. So, and someone fortunately benefited as a result of the Chief Justice pushing the reforms to be able to let us sit before the year ends. If not, they wouldn't have benefited.
And of course, for in Sawam, a court has been set up there.
That is the beauty of all these. And the justice for also led to some of these, so that you can make an application direct to some of these. We want the media to look at these reforms that have happened over the years. Some of the benefits it comes up with. We have utilized that court. If I say we, ordinary paralegals.
That's right.
We trained inmates and officers as paralegals under the program, in prison paralegal program, to complement the justice for all. But the justice for all is looking at remand. What about somebody who has received a miscarriage of justice or excessive sentence? Something eluded the court.
So hold on briefly for me. Let me go to the phone lines. I have Konoba, who is calling us from Kumasi. And there's an interesting part that you bring in about paralegals having audience before a court. It's something that Attorney General, the previous Attorney General, was pushing very much, so that we can, because too many lawyers are not interested in small matters in the district court and the rest. So you train paralegals and empower them to be able to do some of these things. And many lawyers are trained, they are staying in Accra, cities, they don't want to go to villages and so on and so forth. We can talk about that and the community sentencing as well. Akonoba, thank you very much for calling us from Kumasi. What's your question?
Yeah, good afternoon, Senior Counsel. Please, how are you?
Thanks for asking. I'm good.
Okay, Counsel, please. When the panelist was speaking, he said, for instance, when they take a material to the forensic lab, it takes a longer time. So at times we attribute the fault to the system. So my question is, how then do we correct the system? Because it seems any time that we discuss things that borders on the right of a person, then it boils down to the system. How then do we change the system? That's my question, Senior.
Thank you. Kojo, you are calling from Keta.
Yes, sir. Mr. Samson, how are you?
I'm good. Let's go.
Oh, yes. I want to read something. If a court gives this order, what does that mean?
Your question, what you're going to read, is it about the Justice for All program we are talking about?
Yes, partly. Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
If a court says, though the applicant fails to specifically say so, I find the application to be naturally grounded on Order 11, Rule 18, Clause 1A, that the plaintiff has no cause of action against the defendant, ostensibly because portions of plaintiff's claims have been struck out.
Okay, Kojo, what you're talking about has no correlation to what we are discussing now. Leave your contact. We may make contact with you and try to understand you and see the help you are looking for. That's a civil case you are referring to. David, you are calling from Kumasi. What's your question?
Yeah, good afternoon. Please, I would like to be part of the Justice for All program. I'm a law student here at university. I'm interested in supporting.
You are a law student?
Yes, please.
Okay, and you want to help, provide paralegal support for them?
Exactly.
Okay.
As an intern.
Okay, you can intern with them as well, right?
Yes, please.
Okay, please leave your contacts with our producers. Thank you very much, David. Okay, so is there an opportunity for David?
So they can go on our social media platforms and then just put in an application.
Which are these platforms?
POS Foundation.
POS Foundation. POS Foundation.
Yes, well, something eluded you.
Okay.
Even it does sometimes to the court. So understand. The gentleman's case from Kumasi, he was talking about, was the one from Kumasi, where Justice Mensah Humia admonished police CID that when a court gives an order that your case has been struck out, under no circumstance will you take the accused back to custody. We met people there. Your reporter showed that one. That the court have ordered that you should take him home. Then you take whatever remand warrant we don't know and send him to prison. That one, you cannot exonerate the police out of it. The police CID, we've reported one to the IGP.
So what Akonoba is asking is, these people must face some sanctions, but especially when you're disobeying the orders of a court.
That's why I love Justice Mensah Humia. She was extremely angry that they've released the person right when we were there, but she says, I'm not leaving it. I'm probing further. As I sit here, a report is being requested so that the Chief Justice will know exactly what happened and they will apply sanctions and use the reforms that are necessary. The virtual court that we did, Hulati, it was all over the news, was struck, his case was struck out by Mampong Court. Can you imagine? The CID took him back to Koforidua prisons. He spent 6 years until the Justice for All Court, the same Justice Mensah Humia, got angry and
returned again to that.
Because the person was charged with murder. And pathology test, after he had spent 1 year in custody, the pathology test came and suggested that the man did not kill the woman, but she died out of pneumonia. So the Mampong Court struck out the matter, meaning he needs to go home.
Okay.
To our investigation, the police officer says he's been taking him to court with his own money. So he needed to pay for the transport. He couldn't, and somehow the warrant he used, we don't know, but we found him in Koforidua prisons, and these things...
That's Akonoba's concern. Those people must be punished. Of course, Akonoba, you see, so that's a separate situation. Yes. It's not about the program. Yeah. So police, prosecutor, if it's a prison service people who are supposed to maybe transport the person to prison, or police who are supposed to take transport the person to court or so, and they don't take the person to court and they don't have a good reason, then they ought to suffer some sanctions. Charles, you are calling from Kumasi. You are our last caller.
Hello?
Yes, let's hear you.
My question is, after I've been put on remand for so many years, and they couldn't charge me with any reasonable charge, can't I sue the state or the one who put me there?
Okay, thank you. So there is something we call, in law, there is false imprisonment. There are various other things that you can take civil action about. So that is possible, depending on your understanding and the circumstances of the case. And there are also circumstances where the Constitution itself provides for compensation, which the matter has to go to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court will determine the compensation amount that you are deserving if you have been wrongfully dealt with and put in custody. Yes. So you understand people's concerns, right?
As much as we understand people's concerns, let them also know that people are also criminals. And so the system, you heard the president, you saw the statement. Let me echo the president. The Justice for All is a program that is solving the problem or the dilemma between crime control and due process.
Thank you. That's all time will allow us for today with Jonathan Osei Owusu, who is the founder and executive director of the Force Foundation, facilitators of the Justice for All program, which is ongoing. Your train has not stopped yet, right?
No, after legal vacation, based on the directives from her leadership, we will move to Sunyane. They are so much there.
Okay, we need you back here to talk about the paralegal aspect, to talk about the community sentencing
I know
aspect.
that one. You were not
Thank you. So I'll follow you.
Yes.
Thank you very much. This has been The Law. It's your legal light. It is your health law. Have a good afternoon.